2.3 Nigeria Info, Sam Oracle Chinedu here. It is no secret that the rains are here, and by extension, flooding is the resultant effect of those rains. Well, it depends. While rains can fall, it does not necessarily have to lead to flood. But in our case, it's what happens every single year. But a flood-prone community has decried a lack of government support amid a relocation order. A community in Abeba says it is unfair for the River State government to ask people living in flood-prone areas to relocate. The state government had in a statement amid the heavy rains advised residents in flood-prone communities to move to safer areas and follow environmental guidelines. But in an interview with our correspondent, Toyinka Chinwosu, Abeba said the people of Akinima have been left to fend for themselves, as the government has not made any plans to help them relocate to safer places.
Are there provisions to enhance the welfare of the people during floods? So why should government be interested in advising or warning the inhabitants of this area to evacuate? As people to evacuate, where are they going to evacuate to? How do they do the movement? You know about the cost of transport today. How about their security? Where are the locations? The people are no longer interested in what government is talking about evacuation. So why should they always be interested in warning people about floods? It is not fair at all. The people are not children. And this environment that has a lot of wealth supporting the federal government, the nation, with good wealth, yet no landmark projects.
Abeba also reacted to the announcement by NEMA, the National Emergency Management Agency, that it will visit some flood-prone communities for public sensitization. He said no NEMA officials have visited Akinima so far.
There is none of such. I am a community leader. My wife is the woman leader of Akinima. So when you talk about visits, where do they visit? They are supposed to have connection with the community. So we don't know about the visits. Every time I am at home, every time I'm involved in a lot of activities, my wife is also involved in a lot of activities. So there's no place I don't know in my community. There's no place I don't even know in Ngene. And every time we communicate with each other, where have they gone? What have they done? So it is a kind of white elephant program.
The community leader added that the community had been experiencing continuous rainfall for about 7 days, and many residents are living in fear. He explained that farmers in Akinima were forced to harvest their crops early. As a result, there is now too much food in the market, causing prices to drop.
The rains are devastating the rural economy. It has brought about flash floods, and these flash floods have been eradicating farmlands, and people are now engaging in panic harvesting. And some who did not know that such a thing had happened to their farms have even lost their farms. And like in the market now, those of guys that were like 13,000 naira is now about 9,000 naira. And even now, the real flood is yet to come. The flood is supposed to come by the end of August, but now this heavy downpour that has lasted over a week has devastated, the farmlands, and the people are living in panic, afraid of what the future will look like.
Now, as you may know, Akinima is one of the many flood-prone communities in Ahoda West. It is part of the Arashi region, which includes 3 other local government areas and hosts several oil wells. In the first quarter of 2024, River State received 708.59 million naira from the Ecological Fund, money meant to address issues like flooding, erosion, oil spills, and drought. Well, there's a lot to unpack from what we have talked about so far. My guest is an environmentalist. He's Mr. Meshack, an environmental resource manager, and he joins me virtually to answer the pressing questions. Good day, Mr. Uyi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sam Oracle, and thank you, Nigeria Info, for having me.
It was a pleasure. Now, the first concern of the community leader who our correspondent spoke to was that the government has said they should relocate without making any kind of arrangement for them to. So I'll start from there. When he talks about arrangements, what the government should do, what exactly are those measures that government is supposed to take as regards flooding, particularly for high-risk communities?
Well, first of all, I would want to echo his thought that it's unfair that government will be every year resorting to the knee-jerk approach, the wait-and-see approach, and then in order to exonerate itself, will be advising, giving advisory to the people that they should relocate. It's really unfair for government to tell people, relocate, so that when it happens, they won't take the blame. They will say, we've warned the people. It's unfair. Where are the people going to relocate to? like he asked, is the question I want to ask. Do the people really need to relocate? It's another thing, See, some of the measures the government can take in this regard is to, first of all, take stock, take inventory, statistics of the pre-flood, the farmland. What are the hectares? How many persons? How many farmers are there? What are the type of crops they farmed in that area? When you take these stocks, when you are taking these stocks, then you'll be able to know how to prepare so that when the flood ravages these crops and these farmlands, you'll be able to know how to respond, how to come to their aid. So if you don't know, if you don't take stock, how do you manage your disaster? How do you manage your disaster losses when you don't know the take stock? So that is the first thing the government need to do: take stock, take statistics. And rather than staying in the office, or maybe you send permanent secretary to visit local government headquarters, and then they turn back from there without really going to the epic centers of this flood then you are not doing anything, And then the second thing is adequate preparation in terms of, okay, if you want to still insist on providing IDP camp, which I am not a fan of, then you must prepare proper adequate, equip this IDP camp, these facilities that are meant to, house displaced persons. Over the years, no IDP camp in Rivers State has been properly equipped. Most of the IDP camps don't even have a good clinic, a good sick bay or mobile clinic. They don't even have, let alone good toilet facility, water facility and all that. So with no good beddings, no good windows, no mosquito treated insecticide nets for them to use and all that. No mattresses, proper mattresses, no security, and no adequate food provisions in this camp. So what you see in these IDP camps most times are those who are opportunists or passers-by who maybe hear that so things will be provided at so time in this IDP camp. Those who are in the proximity of that facility just go there to take advantage of such opportunities, and then they fizzle out to wherever they came from, and they don't really stay in those camps. So these are things the government can do. If you've taken adequate stock, then you also be able to prepare for response. You also be able to prepare for resettlement, and taking stock starts even before the flood starts. Pre-flood needs assessment, during flood needs assessment, and post-flood needs assessment have never been done by any government in Rivers State. And that is the debt, and that is why flood in this part of the country has become a disaster. Flood ordinarily is just a mere hazard and not a natural disaster. It becomes a disaster because it is not properly managed, and that is why it becomes a disaster. If it is properly managed, it will just be an inconvenient hazard that can actually be managed and abate.
Okay, so I'm glad you looked at the possibility of management of this flood to minimize the effect, but some communities are literally tagged flood prone. Right? Meaning that possibly rising sea levels and water doesn't favor them as much as it does others. So would a sustainable long-term plan be for them not to build houses around there? Would it be for the community to cease to exist there? Or what exactly? Anyways, we're very close to a break. So after the break, I'm hoping you'll be able to answer this. But let me ask a question now. What would be a permanent solution to this? If we're evacuating these people, do we take them to another land that might not be as flood prone? Or does the government need to invest a lot of money to ensure that if the levels do rise, they are not affected? So hopefully we get the answer after the break. Stay with us.
No problem. I'll be with you.
Chinedu here. A community leader in Akinima, Ahoda West local government area, says it's unfair for the River State government to ask people living in flood-prone areas to relocate. And he was talking about some things the government should have done. My guest is Mr. Meshack. He's an environmental resource manager and is still a permanent or sustainable solution to flood-prone communities. What would that be?
A permanent solution would, first of all, be increasing the carrying capacity of Orashi River. That will also include increasing the carrying capacity of River Niger and indeed River Benue. River Benue is the river that links to Cameroon, okay, where the Lagdo Dam, the infamous Lagdo Dam, is located. Mm-hmm. River Benue empties into River Niger. River Niger, when it overflows, empties into Orashi. And because Orashi is a smaller river compared to Niger and Benue, Orashi cannot take that, they cannot accommodate the water from River Niger, and it will overflow naturally and flood homes. So increase the carrying capacity of Orashi so that at least it can carry much volume of water and faster than it can. Increase through dredging, increase the carrying capacity of River Niger by dredging, and also that of Benue by dredging as well. Now, these are things you can do. Open the dams upstream, open them well before time. From now on, the dams should be open this rainy season. The dams should be left open so that the water level will not pile up so much that the authorities will be forced to open the dams, and then the water comes in full force to flood, get to areas where it's supposed not to get. So if the dams are left open for a longer period, the water will not accumulate such that when they open it, it now begins to flood. This is one problem that Nigeria has failed to understand. And unfortunately, we that are downstream are the ones suffering it. However, there's something the person you mentioned from Akinima talked about, that they are beginning to harvest their crops prematurely.
Yeah.
While I appreciate his concern raising in order to draw attention of government and public-spirited individuals to the plight of the people, it will also, however, be unfair to now say that to begin to raise false alarm. I say false alarm because Orashi naturally is well drained, and Orashi ordinarily do not have the problem of flash flood. In fact, our Ahoda West don't have the challenge of flash flood because it is well drained. You understand?
Yeah.
Akinima is just by the Orashi River, and there is no way flash flood will worry disturb Akinima. My community is also Odeke Ubobi in Ahoda West. It's also by Orashi River. We also do not have challenge of flash flood because it's well drained. So when it talks about people have harvested their crops, as much as that sounds very catchy, I would politely disagree that is a false alarm, and I think that we should be a bit mindful so that when it now happens, people will not say, oh, these people are beginning to raise false alarm. Let's not mind them when the chiefs are down.
Okay, Mr. Uyi, let me. Yes, I get your response, and I'm glad that you said what you did. But let me try to interpret this from the English language perspective, right? It is well drained, and my understanding of drain is water doesn't gather for long; it drains off, right?
Yes.
Okay. So from English, that's what it means. Now, if it is well drained, how come it is also flood prone? Because I'm confused. If it's well drained, then there shouldn't be problems of flooding.
Good. Now you are coming. Because it is well drained, which is why we don't have the challenge of flash flood. Flash flood, like it happens in Port Harcourt, anytime there is heavy downpour or storm event, you understand? because of the drainage challenges in Port Harcourt, block drainage and all that, the runoff don't have where to find this, where to run out from.
Yeah.
The drainages are blocked, and so the runoff don't have where to run out from, and so it accumulates and it floods, and that's in momentary flood because of that torrential rain is called flash flood, because it dissipates in not more than 4 hours. It dries up.
Yeah.
So you cannot say because it dissipates in that short period, oh, you are beginning to harvest. Our people know the dynamics of flood in our area very well. You understand?
Yeah.
So they know what those 30 minutes water gathering will not make anybody to harvest the crops.
Yeah, but Mr. Uyi, sorry, hold on. The actual flooding is worse than the flash flood. By definition, flash flood means it is temporary. So if he's complaining about flooding and not flash flood, that is a graver concern, don't you think?
Yes, I agree. It's a graver concern. However, as we speak in Orashi, there is no flood. There is no river flooding.
Okay.
There is also no flash flood. If there is flash flood, it will dissipate in less than 3 hours. And that 3 hours will not make anybody harvest his crops, his or our crop prematurely. For the Orashi region, how Orashi flood is that when River Niger is overfull because of overflow, River Niger will empty its water into Orashi River.
Yeah, you explained that.
And because Orashi is smaller, Orashi cannot contain the volume of water from River Niger.
It overflows.
And it will naturally overflow a bank.
Yeah.
When it overflows a bank, whether it rains or not for 5 days, you will see the river keep rising. The volume of water in the river keep increasing until it will overflow a bank and flood the community, whether it rains or not.
Okay. Now, I'm not...
Do you understand that?
Completely. Perfectly.
And in that situation, there is nothing, little or nothing anybody can do. You can't stop the river. Where are you going to now hold the river from so that it will not overflow?
Okay.
The entire breadth of the river overflows its bank.
All right. Now, I'm not speaking for government, but I believe that dredging is a capital-intensive project. So could it be that government is taking the cheaper option of providing camps, relocating people, doing what it can do within its reach for a short/medium-term effort, as against going for dredging, which will cost it a fortune? Could that be the approach of government?
Yes, that is the approach. And definitely that is what is looking at. Like I said, government has adopted the wait-and-see approach. When these NIMET, Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, Nigerian Meteorological Services Agency, and indeed NEMA, Nigerian National Emergency Management Agency, gives these predictions and warnings. Government will say, we are not sure if it will happen or not, let's wait and see. So that when the flood now comes, that's when they now run around to say, prepare ID pumps, get palliatives, you know. So, but you can actually reduce the effect, of this flood, like I said, by, first of all, dredging. Now, dredging, like I said, will increase the carrying capacity. But if that is not enough, then the effect will not be as much as when it is not even dredged again at all. Then what you can also do is, for instance, like I said, I am telling my people, I am educating, sensitizing them on how to develop a coping mechanism, which I call living with the flood. Okay. Coping mechanism. Over the years, these people have been developing that coping mechanism, which unknown to them, they have been doing it, But I think that because government is not forthcoming, they need to develop that coping mechanism so that they can be able to live with the flood. You understand?
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I have also suggested to government that, look, an IDP camp, as the most an IDP camp in the in Ahoda West or any of these places can take is 2,000 persons.
Okay.
But in a community, the people that will be displaced in just my community alone is more than 3,000 persons. Just my community. And that's how many communities in the entire, in Ahoda West? More than 64 communities, about 68 communities. So how many IDP camps? For instance, if you put 3 in Ahoda, one in Atimbiama, one at Odroboji, one at Akenema, one in Cheke, that's 4, right? One at Okobe. Yeah. How many can this take? Can one of those facilities even accommodate my community people? No, it can't. Which is why I said, if you go to these IDP camps, especially at night, you will see just a handful of persons.
Yeah.
And those are the persons that have little or no options on what to do. They are completely, displaced, and there is nowhere, nothing remain at all. Otherwise, if you go to these communities during this high flood, you will see many people still in the communities. You know what they are doing?
Tell me.
Because going to the IDP camps, what are they going there to do? How do they carry? For instance, some people have hectares of farmland, cassava, and all that they plan to harvest for a year. That because of flood, they will be forced to harvest it in less than 1 week.
Okay.
Now, if you've been able to process that entire crop you have harvested, let's say Gary, and you have like 15 bags of Gary for one person, you understand?
Yeah.
Now, are you going to carry those 15 bags of Gary that you manage to process to the IDP camp? Does the IDP camp have facility to accommodate my 10 bags of Gary and my family, including my properties? So this is why people don't go to the IDP camp. As sad as it might sound, the truth, that is the stark reality. When there is flood, these agencies, these governments, they don't even get to these communities that are completely cut off. If you go, I tell you, you will see 95% of people still in the communities. Coping mechanisms which they've developed to live with the flood because they cannot abandon their properties and crops, which they manage to salvage, to those who have fat fingers to loot and then go to IDP camp. This is why they will prefer staying back. So my strategy is meet these people at the point of their need. You understand?
I
meet these people at the point of their need. Rather than telling them, come to the IDP camp. With what?
Yeah, Mr. Uyi, I get what you're saying, right? Because it is a case of resorting to self-help, which is quite unfortunate, especially when people have a government. But we must also understand and properly outline the dangers of staying back in a flooded community, from health risk to security. There are lots of... I don't think there's one good thing that can come out of it besides, like you said, protecting their property. So, while considering the dangers, is this self-help really the only option on the table in the event that government does not respond, which it has not done in this case? There has to be a way to remedy it.
Yes, for government too, I have suggested that rather than spending so much money every year in providing relief materials, why not use this money and start insurance, agri insurance for these farmers, for these people? Wouldn't that be more sustainable than this yearly opportunistic opportunists?
Yeah.
Set up, start float and agri insurance for these people. And the only way you can actually successfully float an agri insurance is when you've taken stock of the farm produce and the number of hectares each person have in those areas. Taking stock will help you. Once you've done that, this money they spend yearly from ecological fund and what government budget, can be, pushed into agric insurance for these people, so that if there is any loss incurred, the insurance can, cover such losses.
Okay.
You understand?
I do.
And let me tell you something. Yeah, these people cope. For instance, yes, they send their children out to their relatives that are in distant areas, island areas, and so they remain back. I advocate if there is going to be rescue, it should be targeted at the aged, the women, children, and then the aged, the vulnerable groups.
The vulnerables,
if you like.
Yeah.
But the much effort should be put into recovery effort, in terms of helping the people to cope with this situation. Because look, Sam, let's not kid ourselves. Yes, some person may not like to say, I'm promoting or saying people should stay back. No, see, I am not saying I don't like it. I'm sad about it, but that is the only way. Help them cope in that situation, because there is no way, no IDP camp you will develop that will house entire community, not to take off how many communities, 68 communities in our West. Is that possible? No, now. Including their properties. How do you do that? So help them at the point of their need. And you only can do that through insurance.
Okay.
And I think that it is time that government must do that. And also capture flood issues properly in the budget. It should have a line budget on its own, yearly.
Okay.
That way you can plan adequately. And then the River State Emergency Management Agency should be, should be set up. It is long overdue. Once you do that, that agency will be able to plan ahead of time. Flood is no longer an emergency. Why am I saying so? It is because it's highly predictable. You understand? And because it's highly predictable, you can plan well ahead. So there should be no excuse of failure. All these things we are talking every year, the same thing. It's saddening.
It is.
It's saddening.
All right, Mr. Oyi.
Which is why I'm now taking the pain, even though some people are criticizing me, to say, look, people should develop coping mechanism, because government help can never come. And if it comes, it's completely inadequate.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I mean, you've really given us more than we could have asked for. We appreciate your resource. Have yourself a wonderful day, sir.
And let me add this.
Okay.
The people in Calabari area, the riverine area, the villages, the Calabaris, and all those Repobos, experience a different kind of flooding, coastal flooding, and that one is even, I would say, every 6 hours. So, I mean, government has not even thought of this aspect. It's also as disturbing, I think, convenient as flash flood, And so these are things that government should really spend money on. The ecological fund, we don't know what they are using it for. They should deploy it. People are suffering. I'm in a community now, I'm in Bile community as I speak with you. I can see coastal flooding disturbing them here, every 6 hours, especially when during mid tide. It's really disturbing. And how do you cope? Every time government, we only talk about flash flood. Molu is flooded. Rumomasi area is flooded. I mean, government should clear those drainages there. 90% of drainages, if not more, in Port Harcourt are covered drainages, and they are all covered. Why will they not flood? Why will flash flood not disturb Port Harcourt?
Okay.
In fact, Port Harcourt has no reason to experience flash flood, because it is well drained. But because of poor drainage network and management and poor waste disposal attitude, that is why we are experiencing it. It is self-inflicted for that of flash flood in Port Harcourt, and government can solve that if they remain business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyi. Have yourself a beautiful day, sir.
I deeply appreciate it.
Okay. Well, that went longer than expected, but this is a crisis. I mean, every time you go to maybe look for a house, one of the things they tell you, say, check if they get problem with water. Because flooding it's a major problem. And imagine coming from a community that is tagged flood prone. But even worse, imagine where there is no hope of an intervention from government. Now, in the defense of the current River State government, it has said it plans to support NEMA to deploy teams to flood-prone areas in the state to educate residents on flood preparedness and mitigation measures. Statement by the Senior Special Advisor on Media to the River State government, Hector Ibiki Awubo, said the deployment is in response to a recent advisory by the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET, which listed rivers among the high-risk areas. But supporting NEMA to educate residents, what does that do? And it validates the position of the community leader who said, putting out statements, giving advisory, ordering that you evacuate communities. How exactly does that help if there is no measure taken by government? And there's a helplessness that just comes from, there's nothing we can do. Government won't do anything, so we have to make a way for ourselves. But unfortunately and regrettably and also apologetically, I'm doing that already. There's not a lot of time, so I'll have to take the few calls that I can with the little time I have. 0817 923 0002, 0817 923 0003. I'd like to know where you're calling from. Is your community flooded? Are you affected by the floods? And have you ever participated in any community cleanup or drainage clearing efforts? Because they have said, the experts have said, that the blocked drainages, thanks to your waste, is a contributing factor to the flash floods. Temple calls from HA. Hello, Temple. Good evening.
Good evening, the very distinguished Oracle.
Good evening. Temple, is your community affected by the flood?
My community is not affected, but that flash flood as well, when it rains heavily, some communities flood water getting into their houses due to this poor drainage system we are talking about. Some communities, as I'm talking to you now, some of them are still scooping water from their houses, their rooms.
That's
sad. For the past, 4 days, night has been raining. And that, for me, it is indeed a major concern. Where you see a drainage system is being blocked. The one that should be taking these waters down to the community, down to the river. We have a good river. So it's not even like this before this time. But since after these constructions of road and what have you, all these flash floods, ravaging people's properties and what have you, still coming up on daily basis. Which I think that looking at, listening to your guest now, what he said, and what Hector said, speaking from the side of the government in terms of, them working with NEMA. This issue of fire brigade approach, can't we as a people, can't we as a government stop it? Because the man you spoke with now is a community leader. So if there should be presence of NEMA in his own community, I think you should be in the best place to receive them. That tells you they have not even surfaced yet.
All right, Temple, thank you very much. I have to move on because there's little time and a lot to unpack. Marcus from Port Hackett. Hello, Marcus.
Hello, Chinedu.
Good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
Please go ahead.
Listening to your guest on phone, I begin to see the real people who are supposed to be at the leadership in governance. I think that man gave more than correct answer to the questions you asked. These are the people that are supposed to be around governance. The people who knows much about the problem we are facing. He came down from Cameroon down to Rasi. At Cameroon, keep it open. Let it be open. Not locking it until when it overflows. That the volume of the water that will come from there, our rivers will not come out, and then you now open. No! In a Rasi too. It gives clue on how to handle the matters around here. Oracle Chinedu.
Yep.
Take that name and establish the name. Take it to where it's supposed to go to. These are the men we need to be in forefront of solutions to this river flow issue.
Thank you very much, Marcus. And Muriel from Okrika. Hello, Muriel. You don't have a lot of time, but please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, Sunny, it was predicted that there will be flood, in most parts of River State, even the Orashi region included.
It's always predicted.
Now, Orashi people are calling out that these things have happened because of the persistent rainfall, and they are harvesting their crops prematurely. Now, your guest is telling me, what your guest is telling us is that, is it telling us that this call is a false alarm? Is it an Orashi storm in the first place? Or does it have first-hand evidence that this is a false alarm? Look, Sammy, I know you know that in Texas, he's telling us that Orashi region is a drained area. Do you know that Texas City is a drained area as well? These are developed nations. And recently, flood overtook and has killed more than 150%. Do you know that natural disasters, we can just predict what we can, but when they come, when it wants to happen, it is almost unpredictable. Now, what you get is suggesting that one of the suggestions he gave is insurance. Look, Stanley, when you're talking to people, you know that you're talking to many millions of people, and many of them are well learned. Look, when you want to insure something, sometimes you predict that accidents may happen to a car, Yeah, you insure it, you know that certainly most of the time it will happen. Give it maybe 10 years, something will happen to that car, it's a crash or something. There may be life assurance. Now, you're telling me that we should insure farmers and their crops. What are you talking about? Talk about fixing it. They predicted it for too many years. Our leaders have kept quiet. People are crying that this is what is happening, and you're telling me that it's a false alarm. Okay, if it's a false alarm, do you know that things that don't happen, it will happen?
Okay. All right, Muriel, thank you very much. But to be quite clear, and I hope that we're talking about the same thing, he did not suggest that it was a false alarm. He said that the level of flooding currently in that community does not warrant the early harvesting of crops. I'm hoping that is the same thing we're talking about. So, but for stating that it's generally a false alarm, I don't remember hearing that. But again, I'm hoping we are on the same page. Well, this is as far as we can go. Thanks for being a part of this part of the show. The one thing I'll take out of this conversation is if there was a warning, it is not an emergency. And I agree completely. Stay with us.